let's let's switch gears, guys. Let's talk a little bit about this EU-Turkey deal. They've basically come to an agreement on how to control the borders. I guess the big concern is this could really force a lot of the Syrian refugees back into Syria and certain death.
Yeah, I mean, there are two problems here to me. I mean, the bottom line is, we're talking about people here.
Yeah.
And, we're talking about families and people who want safety, and that's the most important thing. And the second thing is, I am very worried by Erdogan. I mean, this, pressure on press in Turkey, and this issue in relation to the Turkish newspaper there, that concerns me. It really concerns me.
He's even more of a fiend on social media.
It really worries me.
Just as a very dangerous man. And now that he's no longer PM, he's president. He's really got these dictatorial sort of ambitions.
Yeah. I mean, that part of the deal supposedly in the Turkey allowing Turkey into the EU deal is one of the aspects is for them, i.e. Turkey, to sign up to the EU values on press freedom. So they're not rushing it through, but they're making it quicker for the EU talks to happen. So I'm very, very concerned that they might make this quicker and rush that through.
Darren?
Yeah, I kind of echo pretty much what Phil has said there. I mean, it seems to me that the EU is increasingly desperate to deal with the management of migrants, but in a way that doesn't involve A, taking them, or B, ending the Syrian war. So how do they're trying to use Turkey as a buffer zone and almost sort of giving them for want of a better word, a bribe of €3 billion. And as Phil says, a speeded up potential for entering the EU as a member, which is really problematic because the Erdogan, as Phil says, his human rights abuses of Turkey are as bad as they've ever been, and the journalists are being arrested. I mean, there was a bunch of academics that were rounded up because they signed a petition denouncing the attacks on the Kurds. So, the EU in its desperation to try and deal with this migrant crisis in a way that circumvents the issues that are at the root of the crisis, and they are willing to deal with this really problematic regime.
Well, it's so problematic. I mean, his record on women's rights, on migrant rights, on so many areas is ridiculous. And yesterday, we're recording this on a Thursday, as we always do for broadcast on Friday, International Women's Day. He actually went on record in front of open microphones and said, quote, "A woman is above all else a mother," close quote.
God.
So,
and that was on International Women's Day.
On an International Women's Day. So, I mean,
and I think in the long term as well, if Turkey, as it stands right now, is allowed into the EU in the next year or 2 years, that in the long term will be it will make it much more difficult to fight terrorism.
He doesn't. I mean, all he cares about is controlling the Kurds. He doesn't really care that much about fighting terrorism, because terrorism actually plays into his strongman role, because he can then,
and that's
clamp
another
down.
Huge issue. I mean, the treatment of the Kurdish.
Oh, it's terrible.
I mean, we've talked about 6 millions anyway.
Yeah. I mean, basically nobody will allow them to have their own country, whether it's Iraq or whether it's Turkey. They won't allow, and yet these Kurds have fought alongside coalition forces. I mean, there's so many stories like this that, again, they get no credit, and yet they're subject to all sorts of potential problems going forward.